Hello everyone, we are live yet again. This is my second author's chat of the week, and I was kind of upfronting the fact that I will be gone next week traveling because it's the holidays and Thanksgiving, and I live in the US, so I'm going to be visiting family and all that fun stuff. But with that said, that's why I'm doing two this week, and we'll be talking about books, writing, publishing, and everything in between in just a few minutes when I connect with my co-host. And as far as this week, I feel like it's going way too fast because that turnaround between coming back from a convention and then trying to turn around and just get things going before next week, it's just so frantic. Absolutely, probably too frantic for my liking. That's the unfortunate part, but I am doing my best. We shall get things going in just a moment. Let me see if I can send the invite and see if she sees it. And we will get things going, hopefully in just a few. And I see I'm back on that grid, and I dislike why it does that. Hello, hello.
Hey.
Oh, okay. I do not like the fact that it keeps forcing me to do this grid aspect versus a one-on-one, and I'm trying to figure out how to prevent it from automatically doing that. But how are you?
Good. Can you see me?
I cannot see you, but I can hear you.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to give access to the camera. There you go.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
I am good. I'm going to try to see if I can switch this over to a smaller, let's see, change. You do that? Okay, that's better. I still don't know why it used to let me do one-on-one. Now it's like forcing me to at least have these 3 slots, which I hate because it minimizes anybody who joins me, and I dislike that thoroughly.
Yeah. You should not have that bottom one.
Yeah, I don't know why, and I cannot figure out how to remove it. This has been going on for a number of weeks, and all my searches are not helping me, so I do not know why. But thank you for being here today, and
You're for inviting me.
Oh, I was gonna say, how's everything been? Actually, let's start from the beginning. For anybody who doesn't know you or what you write, why don't you introduce yourself and talk about your books for a moment?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me. My name is Ingrid Seymour, and I'm an author of fantasy romance. I've been writing for now it's 18 years, and I have a lot of books. I'm working on my 58th right now, and I have 13 completed series. They're all speculative fiction. And I started writing young adult, but I have slowly graduated to new adult.
I love that. And 58 in 18 years. Wow, that's fast. Like, I'm assuming it feels like it at least. That's pretty impressive to have, you said 13 series, and that's a great accomplishment. So kudos.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Every time I watch your videos, because I've been watching you for a little while, it's been fascinating to me because one, it does feel like, and again, this is just the outsider looking in, it does feel like you're able to write, produce a lot of books. And I'm just so fascinated with your process because you're one of the few authors that I know sends out physical art copies. A lot of us can't figure out how to financially make that work. So how did you get involved with that, and how does that work for you?
Yeah, I guess I started doing that with my first fantasy romance, which was A Prince So Cruel. And the reason why I decided to do it, I figured, you always spend a certain amount of money on marketing, whether it's Facebook ads or paid ads of other kind, maybe like a tour somewhere. And so I figured that if I looked at it as part of my budget, for that release, then it started to make sense. It didn't look like I'm just giving away a bunch of books, more like I am marketing my books. Mm-hmm. And in the process, I'm having a lot of fun and meeting a lot of people because I really enjoy the whole swag thing and like packaging the books and receiving them in the mail. And it's like opening a present every time. It doesn't get old. You know, you probably have the same feeling when you get your first copy of your book actually printed after you've been working on it for months. And it just feels really great to share it with actual readers in that way. And I know that a print copy, it's value more. People want, the print copy, want to put on their shelves. So I figure, why not be able to do that, right? And I didn't worry about whether, who was participating and who would get the copy, because I thought that would be silly, like a lot of people focus only if you have so many followers, only if you post so many videos, and I did have a requirement of like, if you want to share, you would get an ebook arc, regardless. And if you wanted to share a video about reading the book, then you could participate in the giveaway of 100 paperbacks. So the chances are pretty good of getting one. You still get to read the book even if you don't want to post anything, so it's been a lot of fun. And so far I've done it 5 times.
Wow.
It's a lot of work though.
Yes, I can only imagine. I think I was looking at one of your, glancing to see where you were at the moment, and I think it was one of your pin posts talking about like how many books you were signing to send out for art copies at some point. And it does take a lot of work because there's the actual time, and signing takes time. But then, like you said, the packaging, and if you're adding anything else in the boxes, and then of course the physically putting them in the mails, however you're, taking them, dropping them off, having them picked up, that all takes time. And
it sure does.
Writing, but still time, hopefully, that brings you back not just great reviews, hopefully, but getting your word out. And again, that helps with your marketing of your work to kind of spread the word, which helps a lot in the end. So you always have to figure out where the value comes in.
Right. I mean, I feel like maybe the reviews definitely do come. That's one definite benefit. It's hard to quantify, everything else. It's very difficult as an indie to meet a lot of readers personally. Yeah. So this is definitely a way to connect with people. I've definitely had a lot of the readers that found me through TikTok. They've gone and found me elsewhere, on Instagram or on my Facebook group and my newsletter. So they have become my readers. And in that way, I feel like not all of them, but a good number of them. And I feel it's worth it, not so much in a monetary sense, because that's, like I said, it's hard to quantify, but definitely in a personal sense, of having people who actually interact with me on my Facebook group, talk to me, ask when is your next book coming, and that's always good to have as an encouragement. I mean, there is someone out there waiting for my next book, so I better keep writing.
That's very true. And those are like those kind of messages are wonderful. And sometimes as an author, you need that because there are going to be moments where you question, is anybody out there? And it's always nice when then around those moments, someone reaches out. It's like, I loved your book. When's the next one coming out? And those are such a feel-good things. And I do appreciate every one of them.
Yeah, sure do. Yeah.
So when it comes to your series, I think you said The Prince So Cruel was your first one?
My first fantasy romance one. That would have been book 52, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. But I was writing paranormal romance and urban fantasy before. And I don't know if you're aware or if you write in that genre. I can't remember. Or you write fantasy.
I write epic fantasy. So not on the romantic side, but more of the action and quest focus. side of things, but
Okay.
two sides of a coin.
But so you wouldn't be aware of the changes in the genre, paranormal romance and urban fantasy were selling very well before fantasy romance took over. And right now, I mean, all of the people that used to write fantasy romance, I mean, urban fantasy and paranormal romance are kind of like, what's happening? The sales are down and are having to actually switch. I know several of the people that I know in those circles are trying to write fantasy romance to keep chasing the trends and writing to market, which, there's a big group of authors I feel like that kind of do that, I'm like in several groups with many of these authors, and pretty much the big majority of them are making that switch. They're just, whatever it's doing well, we're going to try to write in that genre or in that trend. For a while, there was the academy trend. I don't know if you remember. So all of us were writing in the academy trend. It's good and bad, when you want to write commercially and sell books, it's a necessity. I quit my job 6 years ago as a software engineer to start writing full time.
Wow.
So it is a necessity in my case. I have to try to, as a software engineer, I made a good living, and it was a big decision, of many, many months of deliberation and preparation to actually quit and take a big pay cut, but I still have the same bills. I still have, one kid now in college, one, wanting to go to college soon. And so it becomes a big necessity to try to stay at a certain level of income, to be able to pay those bills. And in the beginning, when I was writing, while I still had a job, I wrote more like whatever I felt like writing. And I saw a huge difference in the response to my books once I switched to writing to market. Because I was one of those who I wanted to create like super original everything. And I have several books where I even created my own creatures, with their own names, and so it was very hard to sell because nobody knew what a morphid was or what an ecliptor was. But if I told them, oh, well, I wrote a book on vampires or werewolves, then, they immediately know, and they're not afraid to try it because it's familiar to them. And that's kind of what I discovered, is that when you write very unique things like that, people are weary, and they're like, well, what if I don't like it? I'm not going to spend my money on something that I'm not sure I'm going to like, but I sure do like werewolves. I'm going to read my 20th werewolf book because I really enjoy those, So that's kind of been the dilemma for me, and kind of like an overriding theme for my writing, where I always keep wanting to go to other things, but that call me, other ideas that are there that I want to write, but that it's like, well, if I do that, then forget it. I'm not going to be able to pay the bills, so.
And that is definitely a hard thing. Once people do make that jump or are about to make that jump full time, that is something you have to be aware of, because I definitely, a lot of my earlier series are, when I say passion projects, I wrote what I like, but it's taken me years and years to figure out how to market them in a way that people can relate to. For instance, I have a young adult portal fantasy, and I found, only recently discovered if I'm like, well, imagine if Alice, instead of going to Wonderland, woke up in a magical multiverse, and for whatever reason that clicks in a lot of people's head. And even though I'm not writing about Alice, but I am writing about a young teenage girl who wakes up in a magical multiverse, somehow once they understand something they can relate to, they're like, oh, I would pick that up. Because there are...
It's in their psyche already.
Yes, it's hard to sell. And so trying to find that when you're writing passion projects, but even kind of like what you're saying, going forward, a lot of the works that I'm about to put out or I'm world building for, I am being a little more aware of trends, of tropes, of things like that. So when it comes to marketing going forward, hopefully they'll be better. I don't necessarily want to force myself into any particular genre because it's popular, but thankfully I can visualize stories in a lot of different, trendier, easier to market genres that I'm like, oh, I could get into that, but it's one of those give and take. And I think that's one of those, as every author has to decide, are you writing for yourself? Are you writing for other people? Are you doing some kind of combination? How are you going to navigate that? And in the end, be satisfied, be it, are you just satisfied with having books? Are you wanting to finance your life? Or is this going to be a career? Because there are a lot of things that you then have to be aware of above and beyond the love of your story.
Yeah, definitely. That's why when people ask me about, a lot of times they'll ask me, oh, what should I do? I wrote a book and I don't know what to do. Should I find an agent? Should I self-publish it? What do you recommend? And the first thing I ask them is, what is your goal, right? Do you want to make a lot of money from your book? Do you want to win an award? Do you just want your family members to read this? That's very important, and to help you decide what to write and how to go about publishing it. And it's very hard to sometimes to explain those things to people because they don't want to hear the reality and practicality of things. They have an idea of what publishing is, more like a glamorous idea of it, I suppose, sometimes, and that's not, so it's hard to translate and tell people sometimes the hard things, like, oh, well, I want to make a ton of money, but I'm dead set on this cover. And you're like, ooh, that cover is just not going to work for your market. Well, I think it's perfect. And so until you learn those lessons on your own, it's very hard to explain. It was just kind of like, okay, well, you're going to have to get burned like everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I'm definitely, I can look at my younger self when I was publishing my first couple works, and I can see back then, like, I still know I have my obstinate streak right now, but I am better adept at taking criticism and trying to actually be aware of, again, the marketability of things. Versus when I started out, there were definitely things that now I'm like, ooh, I wish I didn't do that. For instance, the wrong cover was clearly, I wanted it to look a certain way. And then looking backwards, I was like, that wasn't right.
Yes, definitely.
So that does happen. And like you're talking about the glamorous side of publishing, a lot of people, they hear and know the iconic names of the industry and they don't realize how hard it can be. For instance, I do trivia on some of my socials, and one of the trivia facts I pulled was, I know this was very specific though, it was in 2014, what percentage of books sold more than 5,000 copies in a year? And it's less than 2%. And you realize, wow, that's not a lot.
It's very disheartening when you see those things sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. But then the fascinating thing is the indie industry is changing so much because the way, a lot of us are figuring out new and creative ways to reach new readers and spread the word and sell and make actually reasonable livings for a number of us. It's good, but it's still not easy. It's
really, well, I mean, it's a challenge for anybody who wants to jump in, but it is so different this past, I guess, say like 3-4 years have been very different. Indies, like you said, are really making waves. And a lot of the things that we do as indies, it's affecting the entire industry. I feel like, for instance, special editions, now that everybody's like, oh, the spread edges and this and that, it was indies trying to be creative, trying to be different, trying to, okay, how can I offer my readers something better than what publishers offer them, right? And they had to jump on the bandwagon and start, now out of the bat, a lot of them, like Red Books, is offering special editions from the get-go for some of these books, and so another thing that has happened also, it's that a lot of books that have been very successful and that have had good readership, we are now being contacted by publishers,
That's true.
be like, we want to have you in stores, and so that's really amazing. I remember Hugh Howey was the first indie author to ever get a contract with a publisher where he kept his ebook rights and sold his print rights, because that's the challenge that indies have, is getting your books in bookstores.
Yeah.
And so that took care of that for him, and that's been a number of years. He did that Silo series. I don't know if you know who he is, but and it was really popular on Amazon, and he sold millions of copies and was able to do that, but he was the exception. And now in the past few years, I've seen several of my author friends just being offered contracts and being put in stores, oh, my books are in Target now. It's like, oh, crazy. Just, because indies really got their worlds out there, and they're writing out there and build a readership for many years, really. I mean, some of these authors have been writing for years and now finally have a strong enough readership.
Yeah, it is fascinating because, since I've joined the Book Talk community, 3-4 years ago, a lot of the authors who I've talked to on chats like this, respectable number have either signed big contracts with some of the bigger houses because they were doing so well. Others have turned down such contracts because they prefer indie and keeping the better share themselves. And even a few of them have decided to open up their own publishing houses to help others out and get their feet on the ground, because they've had success being in our field. So that's just so neat. That is absolutely just mind-blowing when you think about it and where we were a few years back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in a way, I think that more people are also reading because of this. And there has been like a renaissance of sales for print books because of that as well. People who wouldn't otherwise be reading, they don't want to read some stuffy literary, something. They want something more lighthearted, more, and there was a need for that. And they were just not, we're not, I don't know, weren't willing to explore it or whatever it was, but indies were not afraid and found, some very hungry readers out there.
That's absolutely, absolutely true. But before we delve too much into the marketing side of things, let's go back to your books and your stories. So of the 13 series you have, if someone was trying to enjoy and try one of your books, which series would you recommend right off the bat? Is there any particular one that was saying this is a great one to get your feet wet for what I write?
Yeah, so in terms of fantasy romance, definitely Healer of Kingdoms, which the first book is A Prince So Cruel. That's my best-selling one in that genre. And it's the one that really, like, a couple years ago, it just blew my mind. I mean, I just, it did help me get an agent. It did help me get contracts, in other languages as well as like in the UK. So it's been wild with that series. And for some reason, it struck a chord with a lot of people. They really liked the characters there, and the idea that, kind of like this concept that there's this man or prince who it's a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but to make it different, he's more kind of like Jekyll and Hyde in a way.
I like that.
So that he is at times nice and he's at times not nice at all. And then he at night becomes a beast, an actual beast. So he's not, because I thought, oh man, if he's a beast the entire time, that's kind of the same thing after Beauty and the Beast, and kind of like I want her not to know that he's a beast or whatever. And so that one definitely. And then in terms of urban fantasy, I would say the Maid Tracker series. It's the first series I wrote for a joint universe that has 4 different series in it, which Healer of Kingdoms is actually part of that. The Prince of Cruel is 3 sisters, and the oldest sister is the one who is in A Prince of Cruel. And the universe is one where, there's all creatures in it, and there's a way to travel to the Fey realm, and everybody knows of the existence of the supernatural being. So it's not like a closeted type of situation. So that it's another great introduction to my writing, I would say.
That's great. Okay. Yeah, that's the one I definitely have seen of yours the most pop up on Book Talk. And so that's good, because that means your algorithm is really working. But yeah, no, that's the one that I think that was the first book of yours that I took note of on here. And it does seem to be fairly popular. I saw someone up here right at the beginning, as soon as you jumped on, was like, oh yeah, the writer of Prince So Cruel. So, you were recognized for your series, which is what you want. And I love that. And so you mentioned also, I was just curious, so you mentioned also talking about special editions. Have you ever done a special edition for your book? I can't recall that one.
Yeah, I did actually do one for a Prince So Cruel or Healer of Kingdoms. I ran a Kickstarter for it, and it was my first Kickstarter and my first experience with doing all the special edition stuff and learning about all the different names of every little part that makes a special edition.
Yes, there are a lot of them.
Yes. And so I didn't know what, end pages, which one was that, or headband, what is it? Is it headbands or head something? This, the little
color at the...
Yeah, color at the bounding piece of, it's a piece of fabric. But anyways, so yes, I did. And I was very happy to find, that, my Kickstarter did really well for being my first one. It funded in one day, and it exceeded expectations in terms of my goal. I set a high goal in it because, I don't know, my attitude with the Kickstarter was, I don't care if it doesn't get funded. I'm not gonna cry and feel like a failure, if it doesn't fund. Which I think a lot of people go in with that mentality. I went with the mentality that it's going to take this much money to get the edition that I want done, right? And make it to where it's worth all the work and everything. If I fund it, great, I get to make it, right? That to me, that's kind of the whole idea of Kickstarter, right? Yeah. People are letting you know this is worth making, right? And so... I was very happy when it funded, because it was I had a high goal, and then it exceeded that. So it was like, okay, very, very cool. And jumped in, and actually I made it to where as easy as possible, because I was panicked that it was going to be way too much work and that was going to take over my life. And actually it did not. I found that it was really practical, real easy. I was practical with it, though. I made sure not to create some crazy combinations of boxes that had to be shipped out, and all the little add-ons and everything that you can do can really make it crazy to fulfill. And so I would recommend to anyone whose first time is like, make it as easy as possible. and then you guarantee that you'll do it again because you won't be like traumatized.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that's a great advice, because I've run a couple, and my second one, I kind of was testing out like some of those all the features, but yes, it got a little too complicated. So I think the next one I'm going to streamline it again a little bit more, because every little additive can make not just the fulfillment part that much more complicated, but also you have to market all that too, and that's
Yeah,
and
you have to get it made and find somebody to make it, or yeah, it's a lot. It can be a lot.
But yeah, I definitely also, because I've never done one for a special edition, and that's something towards the end of 2025, I think I would love to do. If I can find the right artists and get everything aligned in order and in a timely fashion, that would be really neat to finally do a special edition for one of my book series. So I'm always
You should. It's a lot of fun, and it's so satisfying when you see it and when you have it. You know, it's like really worth it.
Absolutely. And I did see a question pop up in the comments. Hi, Daniel. Saying overall, what was the starting average cost in terms of an editor and a publisher? So I'll start with myself, and then I'll let you answer as well, Ingrid. But for myself, they vary dramatically. And that's the thing, is you have to understand that. And when in terms of editors, it depends on what you're looking for, because there's a whole variety of editors, and some people need multiple for different things, because there's developmental, there's line editing, et cetera, so on. So make sure you know what you need and how many of them you need, because those are all factors. When it comes to a lot of editors, a lot of editors charge per word versus time. And that cost, again, varies depending on the editor. And this, for publisher, it depends on how you're routing. So it's hard to answer that one in specific cost, because Amazon charges certain things. Ingrid Sparks has a little different things, Draft to Digital. It all depends on who you're going to go through, and those factors. How about you? Do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing that indies should know is that you can publish for free. You can. Whether you want to do that or not, it's the question, right? So you can, how professional do you want your book to be? A lot of times we have the capabilities of doing a lot of things ourselves, but we have to be very careful and be very objective with our own skills. Are we a good editor? I mean, do we trust ourselves to do that? In my case, like I've written so many books that I've gotten to the stage where I trust myself with developmental editing. For instance, I don't hire developmental editors anymore. I will hire a line editor, and a copy editor, and a proofreader, and that's a lot cheaper than a developmental editor. If it's your first book, a lot of times, you know, we tend to be very proud of our babies, and we don't see that they're ugly. And so, which is understandable. And so that's another hard part. And a lot of times for a first book, a developmental editor can really help a lot. Of course, a good developmental editor that knows the genre and knows the publishing business as well. Because you can waste your money very easily. You have to be very careful with who you hire, and the more reputable editors, of course, are going to be more expensive, sometimes prohibitively expensive for somebody who's just getting started. So, in terms of publishing in itself should be free. Right? Like just hitting publish in one of the platforms. If you're indie publishing, is free. The things that cost money is the cover, the editing, you know, that's what you're going to pay money for. So if somebody tells you, well, you have to pay $300 or however much for me to publish your book, that's a vanity press. Mm-hmm. And I would suggest you stay away from them. Because you can do it for free. And just again, how good a professional you want your book to be. You know, the professional cover designer is going to cost a certain amount of money. I would say you can find a very good cover designer for around $500, $600. That's how much some of the covers that you see out there, some of them succeeding, right? That's around the range. But publishing in itself should be free.
Yes, and the things to be aware of, though, I will add on to that is, a lot of the indie platforms are quote unquote free. Now, some of them will charge for your first file to be uploaded. It's not that much, but just be aware. And they do take cuts of every sale. And so that's where they get paid, is through that. So just be aware, what your
royalties, yeah.
So that's the thing when I was talking about money, is just understand that some of them take a little bit more of a cut than others. And so when you're trying to calculate how long it'll take before you earn back paying an editor and cover designer, those are things you have to factor in. But yes, theoretically, publishing a book you could do for pennies, but you also get what you pay for it too. So make sure, especially when you're early on, is to do right by books. And that's why some people will jump on fundraising platforms or crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter to help launch a book, because that will, if they or succeed in that can help pay back the editor and all that. But your money has to come from somewhere. So be aware. Be aware.
Yeah.
It isn't necessarily the cheapest route of a business you can get into, but it doesn't have to be terribly expensive right off the bat either.
Yeah, no, I think that in the beginning of indie publishing, a lot more people were publishing, by their own means, right? Their own editing, their own cover design. I think that indie publishing these days is more sophisticated. As the top earners are definitely, doing as good a job as any traditional publisher in terms of cover design, editing, marketing. Sometimes they exceed what traditional authors actually, traditional publishers do. So it is still, however, very possible, if you are a very talented individual, to publish your book, well, time is money, right? So the investment of your time being the only thing put into there, it is absolutely possible. Advisable, I don't know, but hey, sometimes if that's all you can do, and this is something, a dream of yours, don't let that stop you, I would say learn as you're doing it. Why not? I don't know. I mean, I'm the kind of person that's like, jump in, don't worry about it. You'll get there. We all need to learn some, and the best way is to jump in and do it.
And there are, thankfully, nowadays a lot of resources for all different things when it comes to publishing and indie publishing. There are various podcasts about it. There are groups. One of the ones, especially focusing on the marketing advertising side, on if you have Facebook, is the 20 Books 50K group, and they're a great resource for a lot of different things. And so there are a lot of resources, anything from literature to do that. But there is something to say about getting just jumping in and starting at some point. There's always going to be something else to learn. You do, whatever you can up front, but then you'll have to make the call of when it's time for you to finally make that step forward and go through publishing your first book. And we all want every book of ours to be fantastic, but here's the thing, we also always want to improve. So even if your first book isn't perfect, that's okay. Most of our first books aren't perfect, but we wrote it, we got it out there, we wrote the next one, etc., so on. Now, I do see another question jumping in here saying, how much time a day do we spend writing? And I will forefront this one by saying both of us are full-time, so that's an advantage we have. But how about you, Ingrid? How much of the time a day do you sit down and actively write versus market and edit?
It depends. When I'm editing, I spend a lot. When I finish a book and I'm, going through it and editing, I spend a lot more time. But the initial writing of it, it also depends on my publishing schedule. I have slowed down considerably in the last 2, 3 years. I used to write a lot more. I used to publish 5 to 6 books a year.
Yeah, you wrote a lot.
Yeah.
Doing math.
And now I am just publishing 2 or 3. And so I have a goal of about 1,000 to 1,500 words a day now. It used to be 3,000 words a day. So I was writing double of what I write now. And now about 1,000 words or 1,500, it takes me about an hour and 20 minutes to write that. And so I try to do sprints of 20, 25 minutes. And that allows me to write, if I do 3 sprints, I'm done. Sometimes if I'm doing 1,000 words that day or whatever. So about that much. I'm a pantser, so I just write whatever, I don't plan ahead. I just write off the top of my head. So I don't know if, for the people who outline, if they count that time into, their writing.
Yeah, I'm a person who's a little bit in between. Or at least have been. I think I'm moving, depending on the projects, since I have a couple that have gotten really complex, I'm going to have to actually plot out more than I'm used to. But I do like some kind of loose outline before I sit down and get going, and then I let the story take care of itself. And for me, a good day is an hour and a half, 2 hours to sit down and try to knock out. My goal for a while was 2,500 words in a sitting, and then the rest of the day I'm doing all the other kind of fun marketing, editing, advertising stuff that goes along with the business. And but I would love that to increase, that number to increase. And I also understand different times of the year I can focus better, because at the beginning of the year, I'm usually able to hit my goals pretty well. But right now it's heading into the holiday season. I'm lucky if I sit down and hit any words on paper, because there's so much going on and I'm always scrambling to make sure doing one thing to another. So it's harder now for these latter 2 months of the year. So I do realize also seasonally that affects how much I can.
Definitely. I actually don't schedule as many writing days towards the end of the year. One for, just avoid burnout, just have some free time. And what better time than when family is all around, and also if you have kids, the summer is shot. For me, I mean, during the summer, I'm like, okay, they're here at home, and they're always wanting to do something, so it's a lot harder in the summer for me as well.
And that's also something to be aware of. Just because, we're throwing our numbers out there, everybody is different. Everybody has other obligations. There are some authors that when they began, they, had full-time jobs, they had kids. And so either their writing time was late at night or early in the morning, and they made it work. They loved the idea of writing, and so much that they made it work. And then they became very, very successful. And the handful of cases I'm thinking off the top of my head all became full-time authors after that point. But it takes time. I mean, you have to make that dedication. So whatever your obligations are, you just have to work around it. And if you're a weekend writer, great. I don't write weekends because I write during the week and I need off time. So for me, writing I love it. I'm obsessed about it. I am a workaholic, but I also like to do other things too, because I have a lot of other hobbies in my life.
Yeah, I'm like you. I don't write on the weekends. And when I had a full-time job, I used to write at lunchtime. To the point you were making. I would eat my lunch on my desk and then take my lunchtime to write and try to hit 1,000 words during that time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You make it work. But now, actually, because the hour is slipping by real quickly right now, I have a few questions I do love to ask, because, again, I always say this, if this platform is nice, I will try to repurpose our chat onto my YouTube channel, so that if anybody who ever wants to re-reference anything, it's up there, and hopefully maybe you'll be discovered by someone new. and I'll make sure all your contact information is down below if that's the case. But for everybody who's here and in general, where can people find and follow you outside of Book Talk? I know in the beginning you mentioned Instagram and you had a Facebook group, but what socials are you on, newsletter, website, where else can people kind of find and follow you?
Yeah, I guess the best place is just to go to my website, ingridseymour.com. And from there, you can find my newsletter and my other social medias. Normally, my group, I share stuff, my Facebook group, I share things ahead of time.
Ooh, I like that.
Like they get the covers or quotes or, character names or what am I working on now? Like right now I'm kind of in between series. So I started a new series. So they kind of know already what I'm working on. I start giving hints little by little. So it depends on what level of interest you have, And then my newsletter is definitely if you want to, hear all the things and get all the opportunities, all the giveaways that are available at any point in time, all the ARC opportunities. I always let my newsletter know, hey, there's ARCs available, there's this giveaway. So that is the one way to hear all the things. So I've had people like ask me, well, I never got this. I didn't know that you had that. It's I can't put all the information everywhere. So the newsletter is the best place to get all the news.
I love that. And yes, that's and also the important things of newsletters is in the whatever tragedy that socials disappear. Newsletters is the direct link between the reader and the author. It's something that we can control, and it's, if anybody falls in love with a certain platform and it no longer exists or dramatically changes, at least that's a way you can ensure to be connected with an author that you like. Yeah. That's the background of them. Now, the other thing I love to ask, Ingrid, is what formats are your books available in and where are they? So are they exclusive through Amazon? Are they wide? Do you sell direct? That kind of thing, so people know how to buy your books.
Yeah, I've kind of gone crazy. This year was the year of like trying it all and doing it all, accomplishing all these little goals. So I'm like everywhere. Okay, so I have some books on Kindle Unlimited, and that's my model. I start on Kindle Unlimited, and once the sales drop there, then I go wide. So my newer books will be on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can always read them there, and I will let people know through my newsletter when they're going to drop out. I'm going to say, hey, you have 2 months to get these things read if you're on Kindle Unlimited because they're coming out. So you can find me then at Barnes & Nobles, Kobo, all the other places for my older series. Mm-hmm. I also have audiobooks, which some of them are also same principle. Some of them are wide and some of them I'm on Audible. So the ones that are wide, you can request through your library, for instance, if you have access to Libby. Or what's the other one?
There are a couple out now. Yeah.
If you wanna, you don't have to purchase them. You can request them from your library, and you can look at them that way. And this year I created my store, my direct store, through which I sell special editions. That's the only place where you can buy special editions. And I also created a TikTok shop. I haven't sold anything in the TikTok shop, but I'm not very active. You have to also post a lot, pretty much the same way, and hope to go viral and hope that, people will see your video a lot and people will buy the books. But, I post every once in a while, so I have special editions through there too, which also are connected to my website, through there. To my direct store. And my direct store is ingridseymourbooks.com, but you can get through everything from ingridseymour.com.
I love that. And yes, I totally understand that because I've been working my way to the wide status, but my first stop was creating an online bookstore myself. And it is interesting that even when I post about the fact that I have a shop or even my TikTok shop, a lot of people prefer to route directly to my website and just buy them that way, which is totally fine. I'm okay with it all. But yeah, it also reminds me I need to like actually do a couple posts for my TikTok shop since I haven't done that one lately.
I forget about it too. It's just a lot of stuff. But my main idea has been to diversify, just kind of like you do your portfolio. Exactly. You know, just like you were saying earlier about social media, other things could go away. Like just, it's been announced Kindle Vella is gone. And so there were people making a lot of money on Vella that are now like, what do we do? They don't know what to do. And so there's a huge loss of income there. And so it's very critical to try to not just depend on one site for your income, I think.
That's why I pulled out of Kindle Limited and pulled away from some of my exclusive content on Zon, just because, you know, there's not that it will go down, but I do want to make sure I'm able to reach readers that read on other platforms, because not everybody goes that way. And I did want to have that ability to sell direct, because when you have those exclusive deals, you can't do that. And so, yeah, those are some of the things that I've been thinking about for a while, and that's why I'm trying to make that conscientious effort. So hopefully by the end of next year, I'll have my paper books, most of my audiobooks, and all of my print books available in places. But it's also a process and learning curve, and again, the time and energy and effort where this is coming from.
It's overwhelming, especially when you have a lot of books published. Yeah.
Yes, it takes a moment. It becomes overwhelming, but I have to make the effort now before I write more, too many more books, or else it's going to be that much harder. But
yeah. You need to hire somebody to do all that other stuff.
Well, when I can afford to, yes. Baby steps for me. But let me ask anybody who's listening, as well as you, Ingrid, is there anything that you wanted to talk about topic-wise, or any questions that you had that you haven't been able to ask so far, or any announcements? Because this is that wonderful time to do any of the above.
Let's see. For me, announcements. My next book comes out in January.
Woo!
Yeah. I did get a contract with it to publish in UK and in Australia and some other Commonwealth countries. So I still have my US rights, and I publish indie in the US, but they wanted to do a conjoined release, which it's a pain because they're so slow, and so I have to wait on them. So I feel like I'm done with that series and I'm moving on and I'm writing something else. But actually that book comes out, the last book in the series comes out in January. So
that's so exciting. And that is something to be aware of for anybody who decides to go trad or hybridize in any way. It's traditional publishing is a lot slower than indie. And not to say that indie necessarily is fast, but it does take a dedicated amount of time to make sure all the ducks are in a row for anything like that. So even if you are contracting out, like you said, your international rights, if you're trying to do, as you said, that conjoined release, which are great because it's big and punchy, you do have to wait for everybody to catch up to the same point. And
it's not, I don't know. I feel like, okay, you all are still talking about that series because, like you're living in the world that you're writing at the moment, Yes. I'm like, I even forgot what the names of the characters are in that series.
It's a little funny because the way I write, I do this kind of weird cycle where I have multiple series in different stages. And so I yesterday just released the final volume of one of my Dark Viking fantasy. But even though it was a release and I was like, oh, I finished a series, it was such a weird feeling because I was like, I should be more excited about this. But I've actually written so many other projects in the interim because I'm always, moving different projects forward that it's kind of distanced itself. And I was like, oh yeah, that's coming out.
Yeah, that's odd. I've never done that. I've written 2 series at the same time when I was co-writing, because I've also co-written some series. but I don't know how you do that. I like focus on one project and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to work on this project, finish it, published, and the next one, the next one, the next one. So kudos. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Well, the only reason why that was able to even get started was because during the COVID years, since I'm also an artist, a lot of the galleries shut down during that time. And so I had all of a sudden all this time to write. And so because of that, I was able to begin that kind of staggered project. And it took a couple years before people started seeing it. But that's why all of a sudden I was able to release multiple works a year, because I started this little backlog and then been rotating multiple projects simultaneously since then. But again, I don't necessarily advise it. It's just what I do.
That's how it worked out. Yeah.
It works for me, but I do not believe it's going to work for everybody. So do whatever is right by you.
Yeah, definitely.
That is so cool. And so you were also saying that you are working on a new series. And obviously you're not announcing too much about it, but do you know how long the series is? Is this a short trilogy? Is this going to be one of these?
Yeah. Lately I've been doing trilogies, just because I've done series with more books. One of them had 5 books, and I feel like my attention span just starts decreasing, I have so many ideas for new books, and I always want that shiny new plot,
Yeah.
So I found that for me to keep my creativity going, trilogies work really well. So this one is going to be a trilogy. It's going to be shorter than my last one. My last one had 100,000 to 115,000 words each book. This one is going to be more in the 80,000s, I think.
Yeah.
I'm ready for something shorter, so I think it's like a change of pace.
I love that.
Yeah, writing the very long books, which I know for high fantasy.
Yeah, those are short for high fantasy, but
I just no. I have a series. If you put them together, it's a lot of words, but I have a series that is almost 300,000 words, but it's one series. Well, no, this one has got more now, because that one probably has 350,000 for a series, but that's a whole series. You probably do that, I don't know, 2 books or something.
Yeah, it all depends on the type of book. And so I have 2 series that the books range from 130,000 to, I think the first one was almost 170,000, but then I cut a bunch back. It was my first book, so it needed to be trimmed down a little bit. To tighten up the storyline. But again, those are still rather short on the epic fantasy side things. But kind of like you, I like to change things up and challenge to do different things. So that's why, to counter some of my longer stuff, I had this novella series, and so in comparison, they were only about 25,000 words. And so that's the series I just finished up. There are 16 of them, but they were only 25,000 words.
Cool. So I have a series like that too, that 25,000 words, and there's 11 novellas in it.
Yeah, I like that. See, it is fun, and it's kind of nice to change if you get stuck in one thing, to challenge yourself to do something else. And so that's why I love writing series. I will always write series, but I have since then a couple of my unpublished works so far that will hopefully be released in the next few years. I finally did standalone, which was very different. And I'm working on a duology where I'm going to stop at 2 because I have these other ideas for these very long series. And I love long series.
I find that when there's a lot of excitement on a new series, everything feels new, and you're more, I don't know, I just want to write more. Oh, right. I can't wait to get to work on it. But once I'm getting to the 3rd book, I'm more like, okay, I gotta finish this. For me, the newness and the new idea and the new world and creating, new creatures or new, religions or new whatever it is, right? It's very exciting. I've been reading Brandon Sanderson right now, like the archive series. What is it called?
Yes.
It's the way of the kings, and it's part of the Cosmere. But I can't remember the name of the series. It's the first one is The Way of Kings or whatever. But this whole year has been dedicated to, and I'm like, this man is crazy. Those books are like 1,000 pages.
Yeah, he goes and takes the running joke is he goes and takes a vacation and comes back with a new book. I mean, that man can write.
Yeah. I mean, the whole Kickstarter he did, and he was talking about, well, it was COVID. I was bored. I wrote 6 books. Yeah.
So wild. And again, that's one of those things is never judge, yourself. Don't really compare yourself to someone else, but seeing people like that, I still want to write faster. I want to figure out how people like Sanderson is able to turn around all those books because I want to do that.
Yeah, well, I think you have to be a different type of creature than I am. I'm actually to the point where I'm like, I guess maybe also getting older, and my kids are getting older and everything. I'm like, you know what? I already have 50 something books, I want to really enjoy this process. And, I was in the rat race for a little bit right after I quit my job because I was like, oh my God, I have to do, you have to produce, I have to, and it just, it felt like being slower paid off more because I had more time to dedicate to each book in terms of, marketing.
Yes.
I wasn't so busy writing the next book. I actually had time to sit down and think of a marketing plan and actually implement it because you're only you and you also have to do the marketing yourself. So it's hard.
It is hard and trying to figure out again how much time to dedicate for everything because I would love to just write all day. Not to say I'm an extrovert, so I love chatting with people and love engaging, but I would love to write all day. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I do have to do all the other fun things behind the scenes. Yeah. And I did see a question popping up. I know we're wrapping up in a few minutes. I did see a question about what's our favorite Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book. I will jump on there and say I've never read it, but I have also said on these things before, I was the person who for years and years and years almost exclusively read ancient epics and sagas. That's what I enjoy doing. I still enjoy doing it. So that's why I'm catching up on more of the iconic stuff now because when people ask me these questions like, oh yeah, sure, you've read whatever this is, a Brandon Sanderson book. I have not yet. That's the truth. So that's
hey, there's a lot of authors I haven't read. I have read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So, but just the one book. I didn't realize that there were more. Are there more? I guess I've read the first one.
There is a series, I don't know how long it is, but again, I have not read it, so I would not be the one to answer on the number of it. I just know it's very popular. And, but yeah, so that's why it's the whole catching up on iconic stuff. And I'm definitely a person that reads multiple series at once when I say it. This is another reason why it takes me forever to get through anything. But doing The Witcher, doing the Wheel of Time, going through, some of these more classic stuff, and iconic stuff.
I haven't read that one. That intimidates me. I actually hadn't started this Brandon Sanderson stuff. I have read the shorter trilogies that he has, like Mistborn, and one of the other ones in the Cosmere, but they're shorter. And this one, I would see that I would be like, oh my God, that's going to take me forever. But finally I said, I'm going to do it. So I've been doing it this year, getting through it, and it just in time because the last book in that one comes out next month.
That's what I've been hearing on the wind is that there's a big release in Sanderson's one of his universes, so that must be it.
Yep. So I timed it perfectly. It wasn't on purpose because I didn't know, but I timed it perfectly so that I don't have to be waiting for the last book.
Smart. And I don't mind waiting. It's just, usually I don't have to wait because again, I'm so slow at getting through anything that by the time I get there, it's already published.
Oh, there you go.
benefit and a curse of that. But anywho, thank you so much for hanging out with me this past hour. I've enjoyed finally getting to actually talk to you face to face. I have been following you for quite some time, and I'm always enamored at how well it seems like you are able to find your readers and, your art copies and your beautiful book. And the fact, again, we jumped on and almost immediately someone was like, oh, I know you. That's the cool thing. So it's been such a pleasure being able to talk to you and meet you for the last.
Me too. I mean, I've been following you for a while too, and always seeing your question of the day. It always challenged me because I try to think of something, and I'm like, I don't know. Like you said, that like the one for today, I think it was about a book that I would recommend to my younger self. Mm-hmm. I was like thinking. I was like, I have no idea. I'm so lame. I can't come up with answers.
It's okay. It's usually one of those things that as soon as someone asks you a question, you're like, I don't know the answer. It's the fact that you asked. And now my mind is blank. So I get that entirely. But if you ever want to do another one of these, I love talking to fellow authors. I do them weekly. Maybe in the new year, after you have your big release, I'd be curious to see how all that goes. That would be fun.
Yeah, I would love that. Like I said earlier, we just stay here in our desks, by ourselves. It's great to talk to readers, talk to other authors. Maybe we'll meet at an event sometime. I don't know if you go out to events. I'm planning to do more events next year, hopefully. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's something that I've recently got involved, getting more involved in is. I'm in Georgia, so I'm doing a lot of the bigger cons and conventions in Georgia, but starting to travel and try to reach, again, new readers and connect with other authors in various ways, because that's always fun.
So cool. We're very close. I'm in Alabama, so yeah. So maybe I am planning to go to some of there was a Conjuration Con, I think, in Duluth, Georgia, that I'll try to apply for. We'll see. That'd be cool.
I think I applied for that one as well, and because Duluth is literally my backyard. But yeah, so maybe I will see you there in the next year.
Oh no! All right, cool. Maybe I'll get accepted and we can meet personally one day.
That would be awesome. But until the next time, have the most success with your writing, and I will catch up with you hopefully before too long.
You too, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.